So welcome everyone to the do's and don'ts of conducting interviews. Your instructor today is Brian Kinzie. As I said in an earlier course today, I'm going to try to stop using the organic chemistry joke. I'm going to put it on sabbatical. It's probably coming back, but thank you for your patience. If you could go to the next slide, Brian, we can say our oath.
Okay, one moment, please. We're experiencing technical difficulties.
We're having technical.
There we go.
There we go. Yay! Yay! So if everyone could repeat after me. I, Tiffany Joy Green, do solemnly swear to accept a lifelong obligation to hone my superhero powers and apply those superhero powers to the good of the people I serve. I will promote and add to the ongoing success of Empower People, its members, and the people, organizations, and communities it serves. I will help prepare the next generation of superheroes. I am driven to be a positive change agent for those I serve and interact with. And without further ado, I'm going to now pleasantly pass the baton to Brian Kinzie. And no offense, Brian, but for those folks who love Friends, do you remember when Phoebe got a cold and she got the raspy voice and she thought, wow, I can really sing better with it? Let's find out from Brian, now that he's not feeling the greatest, if he likes the certain je ne sais quoi being sick gives to his voice.
I don't think I do, but we'll see what happens with it. It could drop really low, it could go squeaky, or it could just disappear completely. So this is going to be fun. We'll see what happens today. All right, do's and don'ts of interviewing. Today, what we're going to kind of go through is what to avoid asking that could get you in your organization in trouble during an interview. We're going to talk about understanding some things that are good to ask during interviews. And one of the most important parts of the interview is selling the role. So I'm going to jump straight on into it here. Who am I? I'm Brian Kinzie. I'm an HR consultant with 25 years of HR management experience. Went to William & Mary from undergrad, did post-bac in HR management, and got my MBA at U of R. I have the SHRM-SCP professional designation, and I founded Tinker HR back in 2016, serving the small business and nonprofit sectors. So that's who I am. All right. Things to avoid asking and why. Most of this is based around the equal employment opportunity laws. You want to avoid asking anything that could be potentially discriminating for reasons of race, color, religion, gender, national origin, age, disability, genetics, gender identity, pregnancy, family status, sexual orientation, or veteran status. Sometimes you'll hear people say, well, that's an illegal question. There's really no such thing as an illegal question. It's what you do with the information that could potentially be illegal. So you don't want to ever ask a question that could elicit an answer that would give this information about a protected class, because if a negative employment decision is, if a negative employment decision is made, then the inference could be that that was because of the information revealed by that question. So that's the legal rationale for why you want to avoid asking things that lead to this. And unfortunately, there's a lot of things that we would ask during normal getting to know a person type of conversations that lead straight into these types of things. So let's kind of look at some of what these are. And I'll talk a little bit about why these are potentially no-nos as we go through them also. So tell me where you're from. I mean, that sounds innocent enough, no? But that can also lead directly to national origin. So you don't want to ask that question. Tell me about your family or planning to have any kids. Family status, marital status, pregnancy status, lots of big pitfalls with those questions. Again, these are, maybe if you're sitting in the airport lounge just killing time with somebody, these are completely innocuous questions, but not in an interview setting. When did you graduate from high school or college? The reason that one is kind of a big no-no is that you can work backwards from that knowledge to figure out what a person's age is, and that can lead into age discrimination. how is your health? Or any questions about if they've ever filed a workers' comp claim or had a surgery. All that can lead into disability issues. So those are questions that you do not want to ask. Can you work nights and weekends? Now that's an interesting one because a lot of people will ask that question. That is safe to ask if that is a normal requirement of the job that the person work during those time periods and it can't be accommodated. But it can also be used to find out information about a person's religious affiliations. So that's why you want to avoid asking that unless it really is a requirement for the job that that person be available on nights and weekends and it can't be something you could accommodate. Where do you go to church? Obviously, religion. What do you like to do in your free time? That's something that, a lot of people will ask that question is to try to get to know the person. I want to know all about this person, not just their work personality, but I'm going to spend lots of time working with this individual. I want to get to know them as an individual, not just a automaton that works for me. So it seems like a nice question to ask, but a lot of times when people answer that question, the things that they end up talking about are their families, their church activities, things of that nature. So it basically is opening the door wide open for the person to be divulging lots of information that could be considered be protected information. So you don't want to go into that. Same thing for the classic, so tell me about yourself. A lot of people will just start off with that. And again, people will go into those types of questions and answer about their personal lives as opposed to their work lives if you ask that question. If you go out on the internet searching for interview questions, a lot of people who are posting interview question guidelines and guidance on the internet are not HR experts. And you will see literally some of these questions on suggested questions to ask candidates, which is absolutely crazy to me that that's still out there. But you see these kinds of questions out there all the time. Believe me, you do not want to be asking these. They can really cause some significant issues for your organization. If a person answers with a question with protected information and then they don't get hired, they could always come back and potentially sue you for discriminatory hiring decision. So you don't want to put your organization in that type of position. Now, what if the candidate starts giving me this information? Let's say I've avoided all those questions, but they're just talking, and then they start giving you the stuff that you really don't want to hear. First of all, never write down any of that portion of the answer. You don't want to have any of that as part of a written record. So don't write down anything, and then just kind of gently steer them back to work-related questions. And you will have people that are going to tell you information because again, they're just trying to be conversational as well. And so they're going to give you more information sometimes about themselves than you really need to know about their personal lives. Again, key part here is don't write down the protect information. Gently steer them back to work-related discussions. I probably should add third bullet in here. Make sure when you're making your hiring decision that you're not taking that into account as part of your hiring decision. Make sure that your hiring decisions are being made based on that person's actual skills and their match to the job itself. That's the absolutely critical thing, because if you're sitting there with two equal looking candidates on everything, but you end up going against the person that gave you protected information, that could be problematic for you. Okay, other basic things to avoid during interviews: don't be late. I mean, this sounds really commonplace, but a lot of and this is, you can kind of tell sort of how honestly how the economy's doing by how well candidates are treated or not treated during interviews. When the economy is rolling and there's jobs all over the place and there's like not many candidates to select from, businesses tend to be on better behavior during the interview process. But when there's lots and lots of candidates and all going for the same position, companies kind of will start flexing their power and trying to, frankly, bully the candidates a little bit. So they'll put pressure tactics on them. They'll make them sit in the lobby for 15 minutes waiting for the interview just to make them nervous, see how they react. That's frankly kind of immature to me. Don't do that. If you're late to the interview, own that you were late, apologize to the person. I mean, it's going to happen from time to time. People get busy, meetings run over. These are going to happen. So, but try not to be late to your interview with your candidate. And if you are, like I said, apologize. If you're doing a video interview, don't be multitasking during it. That's very easy to do if you're, especially with today, with most of us working like on Zoom, and we have another window up with like all of our emails going on the side and everything. It's very easy to kind of have your eyes stray over and just go like, oh, I need to answer that real quickly. Your candidate is going to be paying attention to every single body cue that you're making as the interviewer. And they're going to notice if you are suddenly not completely engaged on them. It's bad luck for you as an interviewer. So don't multitask. Try to clear yourself of distractions. Don't be answering telephone calls during interviews if you can at all avoid it. That happens all the time, but try to avoid doing that. Try to get yourself into a setting where you're able to not be interrupted as much as you possibly can. If for some reason you are going to be having to interrupt the interview with something, is there something absolutely vital and critical going on, let the person know ahead of time that could happen, so they're not surprised by it and thrown off by it if it does occur. So, but just try not to have it happen in the first place. Don't do all the talking. This is something that happens a lot of times during interviews. Not to be mean to small business owners, but I'm a small business owner myself. We love talking about our businesses. So, give us an opening and we will talk about our company for like 30 straight minutes. And I've known people who've done interviews, and if they have a candidate that sat there and nodded their head politely for 30 minutes and didn't say hardly anything, they thought that was a great interview. So, because they really enjoyed that 30 minutes that they had with that person because they got to talk about themselves for 30 minutes. That's not the point of the interview. You're supposed to be getting the person you're interviewing to talk, not you do all the talking. And the last thing is don't interrupt rudely. If the person is giving you an answer that's not quite what you're looking for, you can try to steer them back in a different direction gently, but don't just cut them off in the middle of it and tell them, no, that's not what I want to hear, or something along those lines. So try to avoid interactions like that during an interview. They don't go well. So, all right, some good questions to ask. Now, these are things that I kept this purposely pretty generic, so these can be used across multiple positions in multiple settings. And one of the things I like to do at the very beginning of interviews is just verify addresses and phone numbers for people, especially today because so many people are applying through systems like Indeed or LinkedIn and things like that, where they might put in their initial information like a decade ago at this point. And the system hasn't, if they haven't remembered to update everything, what you're seeing on your screen might not even be remotely current anymore. So, and then when you try to get back in touch with the person, unless they happen to be looking at the exact same app that you are, they're never going to hear from you. So verify addresses and phone numbers. That's a good way to start an interview. The other reason for starting an interview that way is it's an easy question. Everybody can tell you what their telephone number is and what their address is. Actually, these days less than normal because we all have cell phones and we never look up our numbers anymore. But it's relatively straightforward, simple question to ask, and it puts the candidate at ease because, like, okay, hey, got the first question, I'm safe. How did you find out about this role? 2 points to this question. Number one, actually 3 points about this question. First of all, find out where they were sourced from. That's just good data for you to have as an organization. Figure out, okay, did they hear about this through Indeed, or had a friend told them about it, or one of the employees of the company, or find out how they found out to apply for this position. Good data. Second of all, another softball question for them. That's an easy one for them to answer, is how they found out about it. Third, it can give you an idea if they were out there doing a very intentional job search where they were targeting a specific position that matches up with what you were looking for, or if they were just casting a really wide net and this happened to be something that you managed to hook onto. Lets you kind of know a little bit about what their thinking was when they were applying for it. What made you interested in applying? So that gives you an idea of, was it the duties? Was it the pay? Was it the hours, the work schedule that was hybrid? It's good to know what it was that was their primary driver for wanting to apply for the position. That's good information to have about why they were looking at it. If they're currently employed, why are you looking for a new opportunity? Those are good things that you want to know. What's making you want to leave your last job? And then the things you should be listening for is, you know, where they could be saying, well, I don't have any more room for advancement with this company. Well, if you're in a position with a very small company where you're not going to be able to offer a bunch of opportunity for advancement, you already know that that person's inclined to leave a company if they don't feel like they can move with their career. So maybe potentially not the best match if you're not able to offer what they're looking for. So that's one of those things to kind of keep in mind. But why they're looking for a new opportunity? Well, you know, my boss was a real taskmaster. They were a micromanager, and you're sitting there and you have enough self-awareness to know that you are a micromanaging taskmaster boss. That's another, okay, that could be a problem. But it's again, good information to know. Tell me about the kinds of things you do in a typical week in your job. And I usually say a week just because that gives kind of a little bit longer, just a day. More people have different things they do over the course of a week. And that's when I can start kind of figuring out a little bit more of the technical skills they might have that are relevant for a position. That's when I'm going through my list of like qualifications that I already have from the job description. I'm kind of checking off like, yes, they've done this. Yes, they've done this. Do they have the skills that I'm looking for? So those are some to start off with. Some other good questions. After I've gone through the resume, when I'm going through the resume, I'm kind of going through it. I'm asking them, you know, what was your job? Why did you leave that last position? I want to know why they've left a position before they went to their next job. That's a good thing to ask about also. Which of these jobs was your favorite and why? Your least favorite and why? Again, I'm listening for match with what I'm able to offer them as an employer and see if it matches up with what I have here. Again, if they're describing their favorite job and it sounds a whole lot like what I have to offer, that's good. That's going to be potentially a really good match. But if they're talking about their least favorite job and it matches up with what I have to offer, then that might be an issue. So keep those things in mind. Tell me about a time you disagreed with the directive your supervisor gave you and how you handled it. You're always going to have times when you disagree with your supervisor. Frankly, some healthy conflict is a healthy, good thing. It's just how it's handled can either be completely non-disruptive and a good thing, or it can be really, really bad. So, and if the person is at this point in an interview kind of settled in and feeling comfortable, you'll be surprised with sometimes the level of honesty you will be getting from your candidates at this point. They will sometimes tell you things that are like, wow, I'm really surprised you told me that. So, but how they handle that type of conflict is a good thing to know. Proudest accomplishment at one of your past jobs, again, give them a chance to brag. That's a good thing. Tell me about your favorite supervisor. What did you like most about working for them? Again, that can give you insight. Again, how are they going to mesh with you as a supervisor if you're going to be their direct supervisor? And also a little bit about what might be the most effective way to manage them as an employee as well. So some people like lots of guidance. Some people want more of a hands-off manager. It's good to know that kind of information up front before you start working with a person. And then, of course, the obvious, what questions do you have? And that gives you an idea right there of how much did they prepare for that interview? what their inquisitiveness is, how engaged they are on the position with your company. Another good question. There's tons of good questions out there. These are just some that I think that are applicable in most situations and give good information, be able to make a hiring decision that's going to be able to give you information that'll make you better prepared to make a good hiring decision. Few other pointers. Review the job description before you do the interview. It's amazing how many times people come in interviews and they're really not completely prepared for what they're interviewing for. So even if you think you know the job you're hiring for really well, just take a really quick look at it again. Sometimes you forget about some of the details that are really critical for the job. So it's good to just take a look at that job description before the interview. I would say if you have not actually put together a job description, you really should take that step. It's really vital to understand what it is you're trying to hire for before you start hiring for it. Going through that process of creating that job description sometimes will help you understand how that role is going to fit within the organization. It'll kind of help you solidify your thoughts about what it is that you really need that person to do, and think about it kind of long term as well, as in terms of what you're going to need, not just today, but maybe 6 months from now. Make sure that that's all in alignment. Ask open-ended questions. So you want the key in an interview is to get the person talking. You want to find out as much about their skills and their work experiences as you can. And you don't want to give them yes, no answer types of questions. You want them to be able to talk. The whole concept of doing what's considered to be a behavioral interview is to have it set up to where the person is talking about their past experience. The past experience of a person is the best indicator of their future performance. So you want to ask those open-ended questions, get them talking about what they've done in the past, because that's going to give you your best information that you can possibly gather for how well they're going to perform in your organization in that role. This is really important. Allow silence. Sometimes people need a moment to ponder over a question before they answer it, and that is completely fine. Not everybody is someone who can sit there and verbally process a lot of things really quickly. So if a person needs a moment to think about it, and they're sitting there and you ask them the question and they're like, just let them stew for a moment. You can say, take your time, come up with your answer. You take all the time you need. Don't let them off the hook with it though. You want to get the answer. So, but if they need some time to come up with something, that's completely fine. It's okay to sit there and let them have that moment. Never forget that you're selling the role. This is something that's, again, kind of going back to how many candidates are out there on the street looking for a job or not looking for a job. When companies feel like they're the only show in town, they tend to forget that they're trying to sell the role to the candidate. They're expecting the candidate to sell themselves to them. When it's lots and when there's not as many people out there looking for the job, it's your position to sell your company to that employee. So never ever forget that this is a two-way street between the company and the person. So you want to have, during the interview itself, you want it to be about the actual person and what their skills are and what they can bring to the company. But at the very end, when you're kind of hitting that wrap-up stage, this is when you need to be able to pitch your organization to them. So you're selling at that point. You're trying to convince them, especially if this is a candidate, you've gone through that interview and your feeling is like, oh, this is a pretty good candidate here. You want to make sure that they're coming away having a good feeling about your organization. It's a great time to talk about the purpose of your organization and your mission, your core values, and see if that's in alignment with that person's interests and what their kind of organization they're interested in working for. And if it's not, that's okay. If you know, if you're a person who's, you know, if your organization is completely altruistic and the person you're like trying to hire for is like and the candidate is driven completely by money, maybe that's not a good alignment. And it's better to figure that kind of thing out up front as opposed to making a bad hire. So it's good to talk about your organization's purpose, your mission and core values, and let that stuff be out front so they know if there's going to be alignment between them and you or not. Paint a picture for them of what the role would be and what their potential future in the organization could look like. That's really helpful, especially for people who are more career oriented or are looking for room for growth. They want to know kind of like, okay, I might start here, but what could happen further down the line? Where could I be out 5 years from now, 7 years from now? Or if they're relatively newer in their career, where could I be at 6 months from now, a year from now, 3 years from now? And then the final thing I'd like to point out is you want to move through the process as quickly as you possibly can. If they are a good candidate, they are probably going to have multiple people that they're interviewing with, and they will probably be getting multiple offers, especially right now. So you don't want to say, hey, that was great. Really enjoyed speaking with you. We'll be back in touch with you in a couple of weeks. They're probably not going to be around in a couple of weeks if they're a like superstar candidate. You know, they might be. You could get lucky, but or it could be that if they really feel like you're the best organization, they will wait around for a couple of weeks for you. But don't count on that. It's really easy to have the candidate that you fall in love with disappear if you aren't moving faster than the competition that's out there looking at them also. So try not to delay it at all if you can. Try to move quickly. So I could have talked for an hour on this, but we're trying to keep it 30 minutes. So are there any questions? And Tiffany, you are on mute.
Thank you. I usually really good about taking myself off. First, before we start doing the questions, I'm going to turn off Facebook Live. I want to say goodbye to everybody on Facebook. If you're not currently in a Power People member and you want to be a part of the Q&A sessions after our courses, you could just feel free to join. It's free on powerpeople.org/join. Until next time, goodbye, Facebook land.